Your doctor ran your fasting glucose last visit. It came back normal. But here is what that number does not tell you. In 21 years of treating metabolic dysfunction, I have watched patients with completely normal glucose readings slowly develop visceral fat accumulation, progressive kidney strain, and rising triglycerides, all while eating diets they genuinely believed were healthy. The glucose was fine. Kitchens right now, and the reason they are dangerous is not the one most people assume. It is not the sugar you can taste. It is not the fat you can see. It is what these 5 categories do to your insulin signaling, your vascular endothelial function, and your kidney filtration capacity quietly over years before any standard lab marker catches up. Stay with me through all 5, because number 4 is the one I see most consistently misunderstood by patients who are otherwise doing almost everything right. And number 5 involves a combination ultra-processed foods as a category. And I want to spend time here because most people hear ultra-processed and think they already know what I am going to say. They do not. A 2024 meta-analysis published in Renal Failure, drawing from 4 large cohort studies with a combined 219,132 participants, found that the highest ultra-processed food intake was associated with a 25% higher risk of developing chronic kidney disease, with a relative risk of 1.25 and a confidence interval of 1.18 to 1.33. That is not a minor finding. And that distinction matters because the mechanism is what tells you which specific products to look at. Ultra-processed foods do not damage the kidney through any single pathway. They do it through at least 3 simultaneous mechanisms. First, their high glycemic load drives repeated insulin spikes. Each spike, sustained daily across years, gradually reduces the sensitivity of insulin receptors in skeletal muscle and liver tissue. When those receptors stop responding efficiently, the pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. And chronically elevated insulin is a direct driver of endothelial inflammation, glomerular hyperfiltration, and progressive renal strain. A review published in BMJ Open in 2023 explained the critical difference. Phosphorus from natural food sources, meat, fish, dairy, nuts, is absorbed gradually and regulated by the gut. Inorganic phosphate additives are absorbed almost completely, bypassing that regulatory system entirely. The kidneys are left filtering a load they were never designed to expect continuously. Third, the sodium content in packaged soups, frozen meals, and cured products forces the kidneys into sustained overtime, not because sodium is toxic in isolation, but because the volume of fluid the body retains to balance chronic excess sodium imposes mechanical pressure on the glomeruli, the microscopic filters your body issued you at birth and does not replace. 3 stressors, 1 product category, and a 2025 review in the European Journal of Internal Medicine coined a term for the combined result: cardio-kidney-metabolic syndrome. The highest ultra-processed food consumers had 55% higher odds of obesity and documented increased risk across cardiovascular, metabolic, and renal pathways simultaneously. That is the framework. Everything else in this video fits inside it. Number 2 is dietary fructose. And this is the category that generates the most confusion because it hides inside products that register as completely harmless or even healthy to the eye and to the tongue. Research on fructose metabolism is some of the clearest I have seen in endocrinology. A foundational review in nutrition and metabolism established the mechanism precisely. When fructose reaches the liver, which is the primary organ capable of metabolizing it, it bypasses the regulatory steps that govern glucose. It goes directly into a pathway that drives de novo lipogenesis, the creation of new fat from carbohydrate. That fat accumulates in hepatic tissue, impairs insulin signaling at the liver itself, and raises triglycerides in circulation. The result is insulin resistance that starts in the liver and radiates outward. The pancreas sees rising glucose because the liver is no longer responding to insulin appropriately. It produces more insulin to compensate. And chronically elevated insulin, as I mentioned in the first category, is itself a driver of vascular injury and kidney stress. A 2019 review in Nutrients confirmed what I see consistently in clinical practice. Fructose consumption is independently linked to insulin resistance, intrahepatic lipid accumulation, and hypertriglyceridemia. And here is what makes this frustrating. The fructose doing this damage is almost never coming from fruit. It is coming from high fructose corn, the syrup in flavored drinks, packaged sauces, breakfast cereals, and the products marketed as natural or fruit-flavored that line the beverage aisle in every grocery store. I know what some of you are thinking right now. I switched from my regular soda to the fruit-flavored sparkling water. I thought that was the healthy choice. I hear this every week. Check the label. If you see high fructose corn syrup, sucrose, or even fruit juice concentrate in the first 5 ingredients, the metabolic mechanism is identical to what I just described. The packaging changed. The fructose load did not. Number 3 is processed animal protein, not animal protein in general. That distinction is critical, and I want to make it clearly. Lean protein is essential. Your muscle mass after 60 depends on adequate protein intake. What I am describing here is a specific subset, processed meat, which stacks 3 separate metabolic stressors into a single product. Processed meat, bacon, sausage, deli cuts, hot dogs, contains concentrated animal protein, excess sodium, and inorganic phosphate additives simultaneously. A 2023 review in BMJ Open made this combination explicit. The acid load from sulfur-containing amino acids in processed meat, combined with its phosphate additive content, creates compounding pressure on the kidneys, particularly in the context of already reduced filtration capacity that is common after 60. The mechanism on the protein side is this. High animal protein intake increases. The action here is not to eliminate animal protein. It is to move the processed category to the exception rather than the rule. Home-roasted chicken, a fresh piece of fish, an egg, these are not the problem. Before I get to food 4 and 5, I want to flag something. The patterns that a 2025 review in the European Journal of Internal Medicine linked to what researchers are now calling cardio-kidney-metabolic syndrome. Not 2 separate problems, one unified mechanism with a common driver. I will name that driver, and I will tell you the single highest leverage change available to you from everything in this list. Stay with me. Number 4 is the one I promised you at the start. And I want to be direct with you before I explain the mechanism, because this is the category I see most consistently in patients who are genuinely trying to do the right thing. They switched. They gave up the regular soda. They moved to the fruit-flavored sparkling water, the natural juice drink, the sweetened iced tea. And they believed, reasonably, that the problem was solved. It was not. The label changed. The metabolic damage did not. A standard can of regular soda delivers roughly 9 to 10 teaspoons of sugar, primarily as high fructose corn syrup. But the damage does not run through one pathway. It runs through 4 simultaneously. First, the repeated insulin spikes from daily consumption, compounded over years, progressively reduce insulin sensitivity across tissue. This is the same hepatic fructose mechanism I described in category 2, but at higher volumes and higher frequency. Second, the fructose load drives hepatic fat accumulation. What the research now shows, and this is the part that most videos skip over, is that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and insulin resistance are not parallel conditions that happen to coexist in the same patient. They are causally linked through the same fructose-driven lipogenic pathway. When the liver is infiltrated with fat, it stops responding to insulin appropriately.
And elevated insulin drives visceral fat storage, vascular inflammation, and kidney hyperfiltration.
1 can of soda per day, repeated across years, is not a single event. It is a continuous biological signal telling your body it's damaged. That's the truth. It's your metabolic system to stay in a damaged state. Third, the uric acid generated during fructose metabolism directly impairs nitric oxide production in the endothelium. Nitric oxide is the primary mediator of vascular tone and insulin-mediated glucose uptake. When uric acid suppresses it, blood pressure rises, insulin signaling degrades further, and the small vessels supplying the kidney nephrons begin to sustain structural damage. Fourth, dark colas carry phosphoric acid, adding the same inorganic phosphate mechanism from category 2 and 3 on top of everything above. Illustrative scenario, names, and details are fictional. I had a patient, let us call him Robert, 64, retired engineer. He came to me with visceral fat that was not moving despite a disciplined diet. His fasting glucose was 94, completely normal. But his fasting insulin was 22 microunits per milliliter, nearly double what I would consider the upper threshold of metabolic safety. When we went through his week, the one item that stood out was a flavored sparkling water he drank 2 to 3 times daily because he had specifically switched to it from soda. It contained 18 grams of sugar per can from fruit juice concentrate. 3 cans a day, every day, for 2 years. The fructose mechanism I just described was running continuously in his liver the entire time. His glucose never reached a normal level because it was stuck there. Caught it. His insulin told the whole story. In 21 years of treating metabolic dysfunction, the daily sugar-sweetened beverage is the single highest impact item I ask patients to remove first. Not because it is the most dramatic, because it is the one that is doing the most damage simultaneously through the most mechanisms, and the one that most people have the clearest path to replacing immediately. Water, sparkling water, unsweetened tea, whole fruit when you want sweetness, not fruit-flavored drinks. Those are often delivering category 2 damage through a different label. Number 5 is hidden dietary sodium. Found that dietary sodium reduction, that is important because the mechanism runs in both directions. High dietary sodium raises blood pressure. Sustained elevated blood pressure forces blood through the glomeruli at higher mechanical pressure. The nephrons, those microscopic filters you were issued at birth with no replacement available, sustain structural damage gradually, quietly, with no pain signal and no warning. Packaged bread, breakfast cereals, canned soups used as cooking bases, frozen trays, condiments, salad dressings. A single can of soup can deliver the equivalent of an entire day's sodium in one serving. Stacked on top of processed meat from category 3 and a sugar-sweetened beverage from category 4, you have the full pattern, amplifying blood pressure and worsening insulin signaling simultaneously. This is precisely the combination the body struggles to handle. The 2025 European Journal of Internal Medicine review identified as cardio-kidney-metabolic syndrome, not 3 separate conditions affecting 3 separate organs. One unified metabolic cascade with identifiable dietary drivers. Here is why that matters clinically. Your standard appointment measures these as separate problems. Blood pressure in one column, glucose in another, kidney function in a third. The mechanism connecting all of them is the one. Most 15-minute appointments do not have time to cover. That is what this video exists to explain. I would actually approach this if I were sitting across from you in my office right now. Do not attempt to remove all. Change is consistent on this point. Single target interventions outperform multiple simultaneous changes in sustained compliance. Pick one product, the one you reach for most often across these 5 categories. Your most used canned or packaged item. Check it for 2 things only. Sodium per realistic serving, not the optimistic serving on the front label, and any ingredient beginning with the letters PHOS. Phosphoric acid, sodium phosphate, calcium phosphate. Homemade stock instead of canned soup base. Fresh protein instead of deli. Sparkling water instead of the flavored drink. These are not dramatic lifestyle overhauls. Ask your physician to run a fasting insulin level alongside your standard glucose and HbA1c. Your glucose can look completely normal while your fasting insulin is already chronically elevated. That gap, which is the research consistently shows is measurable years before glucose dysregulation appears, is exactly what I mean when I say your doctor may be measuring the wrong thing. Knowing your fasting insulin gives you information that your standard panel simply does not. If you are watching this video, you now understand the mechanism that most patients in my practice never receive an explanation for. That knowledge gives you the ability to ask better questions at your next appointment. And asking better questions is where metabolic health protection actually starts. If what you heard today surprised you, share this video with someone in your life who is still drinking the flavored drinks because they think they already made the healthy switch. That one conversation could matter more than anything else I said in the last 16 minutes. If this kind of mechanism level explanation is useful to you, the next video I would point you to covers what your fasting insulin number actually means, what range the research identifies as the danger zone before glucose abnormalities appear, and what specific dietary changes move that number. It picks metabolic health, and I will see you in the next one.